Hollywood taught us to stare at a cowboy's gun and hat. Today, we're pulling back that illusion. This is about 15 items cowboys carried every single day. The quiet essentials, the improvised fixes, the personal keepsakes no one noticed. Together, they reveal how brutal, resourceful, and deeply human frontier life really was. No legends, no movie magic, just the truth of survival. So tighten your boots, adjust your saddle, and reach into your pockets, because the first hidden item decided who rode on or vanished forever out there. Hidden coin pouch. Stories like to pretend courage or reputation protected a man's pay. Out there, survival meant keeping your wages from being seen at all. Long months on the trail ended with a few coins. Often, all a cowboy had to show for hunger, cold nights, and risk. Torn pockets, stolen saddlebags, crowded bunkhouses, and careless sleep could erase that work in seconds. Losing money meant no food, no room, no ride forward. Coin pouches were small and forgettable by design. Soft leather or cloth, stitched inside trousers, hidden in coat linings, or buried deep in a pocket. Coins were wrapped to kill the sound, sometimes split into separate hiding places. Some men pinned the pouch shut, so wandering fingers found nothing. Archaeological digs at rail towns and bunkhouses still turn up scattered coins beneath floorboards. Wages dropped, hidden too late or never recovered. Full pockets or empty hands. Another month riding or nowhere to go. The myth says bravery earned survival. The truth is hiding what you earned kept it. And once money was safe, another quiet necessity stayed closer still. One meant to guard the man himself. Pocket Bible. Something to hold on. The myth says toughness and grit carried men across the frontier. Out there, survival often depended on keeping your mind from breaking when the land gave no comfort at all. Days of empty horizon, nights without sound, hunger that dulled thought, and exhaustion that invited bad choices wore men down faster than bullets ever did. A man who lost focus rode too far, missed water, trusted the wrong place to sleep. The Pocket Bible wasn't carried for sermons. It was carried to steady the mind when isolation and fear crept in. A few familiar lines, a verse memorized by touch, were enough to slow panic and regain control. These Bibles were printed thin as onion skin, small enough to disappear into a vest lining or behind a tobacco pouch. Pages softened by sweat and handling, wrapped to keep out rain, carried where they couldn't be lost. Some men tucked notes inside, names, prayers, reminders of home. Trail diaries mention riders reading before long crossings, and museum collections still hold water-stained testaments pulled from bunkhouses and campsites. Focus or collapse, direction or despair. The myth says strength kept men moving. The truth is belief kept them steady. Plug chewing tobacco. The legend says toughness carried men through the West. What actually mattered was keeping your nerves from slipping when the land refused to give you a pause. Endless miles, silence, heat, cold nights, and constant watchfulness wore men thin. Chewing tobacco dulled hunger, steadied hands, and kept tempers from flaring when mistakes could turn costly. It gave focus when fatigue blurred judgment and isolation pressed too hard. Plugs came as dense blocks, wrapped in oilcloth or buckskin and buried deep in a pocket. Cowboys shaved off small pieces with a knife, saving every scrap. Sweat, dust, and time couldn't ruin it. When supplies ran low, tobacco traded quietly for favors, food, or peace around a tight campfire. Frontier store ledgers list tobacco by the crate, and dig sites still turn up hardened pieces near old fire rings, kept long after flavor was gone. Steady nerves or frayed tempers, control or collapse. The myth says grit was enough. The truth is calm had to be carried. And once that calm held, a man still needed something to keep his wages from disappearing overnight. Flint-and-steel fire kit. People think guns or horses mattered most. Out there, it was the ability to make fire that decided if a night ended or never did. Cold settled fast. Rain soaked wool, Wind stripped heat from skin. Darkness closed in with no warning. Fire meant boiled water instead of sickness. Dried clothes instead of hypothermia. Light instead of panic. Warmth instead of shaking hands. A flint-and-steel kit was small and brutal in its simplicity. A steel striker, sharp flint, and a scrap of char cloth. No moving parts, no noise. Cowboys sealed them in oilcloth and hid them deep in pockets or bedrolls, where sweat couldn't ruin them and thieves wouldn't bother searching. Trail records mention camps losing fires to storms, then surviving because one rider could spark another. No celebration followed, just men waking up. Warm coffee or frozen ground, light or endless dark. The myth says weapons kept men alive. The truth is fire did. Coffee bean pouch. The West didn't run on whiskey or bravado. It ran on coffee. Not the polished cafe kind, but gritty, bitter black brew that jolted a man awake when the sun refused to rise fast enough. Cowboys carried small pouches of beans or grounds, wrapped in oilcloth or hidden in vest pockets, always within reach. It wasn't luxury, it was fuel. Herds moved at dawn. Storms ignored sleep, and nights stretched cold and lonely. Some roasted beans over campfires. Others kept their pre-roasted stash sealed against moisture. A handful of beans could be brewed in a tin cup, boiled in a skillet, or even chewed straight when exhaustion threatened to overtake a rider. Trail journals mention cowboys rationing coffee more tightly than food, trading it for dry matches or a warmer blanket. Those with their own supply were suddenly the most popular men on the drive. Scorched bean fragments and charred pouches found near old campsites testify to the ritual, the necessity, the quiet obsession with staying alert. And while the coffee kept bodies awake, cowboys still carried another, deadlier secret. Something hidden in cloth that might be the last thing anyone ever saw. Pocket whetstone. A dull blade was more dangerous than any rattlesnake lying in wait. Rope, rawhide, and constant work dulled steel faster than a man could blink. And a knife that wouldn't cut was a tool that could fail when survival demanded it most. That's why so many cowboys carried a small pocket whetstone, wrapped in cloth or tucked in a vest, always within reach. Most were simple slips of sandstone or novaculite, no longer than a finger, worn smooth from decades of sharpening. Some riders drilled tiny holes to tie them to a thong, ensuring the stone stayed in place during muddy camps or long rides. Trail journals recount evenings by the fire, knives dragged carefully across stones, while beans simmered and horses settled. Sharpening was ritual, a quiet dedication that ensured every cut was clean, every fix reliable, every rope severed without struggle. Surviving stones still bear the rounded curves and hollowed surfaces of constant use, a silent witness to the workaday life of the trail. And when blades were honed to perfection, cowboys often turned next to something they carried for the weight that no steel could match, a companion against the loneliness of the West. Folding pocket knife. People think revolvers kept trouble away. Out there, it was the knife that stopped problems before they ever grew teeth. Rope frayed, rawhide stiffened, tin cans refused to open, saddles tore, fences failed, hunger, delay, and small injuries piled up fast, and each one could cost daylight, warmth, or control. The knife kept work moving when stopping meant trouble. Most cowboys carried plain jackknives from general stores, bone or wood handles, a single folding blade. No lock, no shine. It lived in a pocket or boot top close enough to grab without looking. Blades wore thin over years of sharpening, curved by stone and necessity, not design. Camp notes and trail accounts mention knives more than guns, listed alongside ropes and cups, tools replaced immediately when lost. With a knife, the day held together. Without it, tasks stalled and tempers followed. The myth says guns solved problems. The truth is knives prevented them. Rawhide repair strips. Leather might crack. Straps could snap. Saddlebags tore. The West tested every stitch and seam, but rawhide held when nothing else would. Cowboys carried thin strips tucked in pockets tied to belts or knotted onto saddles, lightweight, strong, and ready to mend nearly anything the trail tried to destroy. Most riders cut their own from worn-out lariats or soaked hides, slicing them into narrow lengths that dried stiff and tight. When re-wetted, the strips twisted, braided, or clamped broken tack better than many metal fastenings. Trail accounts tell of riders repairing cracked saddle trees or binding snapped stirrup leathers by lantern light, wrapping broken pieces until the next line camp. Every strip was a quiet lifeline, more valuable than gold when a horse's rig failed mid-ride. Archaeologists still find sun-bleached, curled fragments at abandoned corrals, proof of their lasting resilience. Rawhide wasn't flashy. It didn't shine, it didn't make a man a hero. And just when the repairs were secure, another survival secret quietly appeared, one that fueled a cowboy's long nights and early mornings, keeping both mind and body alert for the miles ahead. Trail sewing kit, housewife. Clothing tore faster than a cowboy could swear. A ripped sleeve, a blown trouser seam, or a shredded saddlebag could ruin a day. Or worse, turn danger into disaster. That's why every man on the trail carried a tiny sewing kit, a housewife, rolled tight in buckskin or cloth, hidden deep in a pocket where it wouldn't spill. Inside were the essentials: a needle or two, strong thread, a scrap of beeswax, maybe a spare button. Some riders added strips of canvas or leather for emergency patches. No kit was fancy. Edges frayed, thread flattened, needles bent. But it was the difference between riding on or being stranded by minor damage. Diaries from the drives mention men stitching trousers by lantern light or mending saddle skirts while coffee boiled. Every stitch was slow, awkward, often done with cold or blistered fingers, but necessity demanded precision. Surviving kits in museums still show the wear of decades, each one a testament to quiet labor done out of sight. And once the seams were secured, cowboys often reached for a tool that kept their blades as ready as their stitches. Always nearby, never neglected. Spare cartridges wrapped in cloth. A cowboy's gun was only as good as the bullets it carried, and the smartest men never relied on what hung openly on their belts. Extra cartridges wrapped in scraps of cloth and stashed deep in pockets or saddlebags were the invisible margin between finishing a job and facing danger empty-handed. These rounds weren't polished for show. Most were scuffed, darkened with oil, and carried for weeks at a time, each one a quiet promise of protection. Cloth kept grit from fouling the cases and silenced the telltale clink that could draw curious or deadly ears. Some cowboys tucked shells into tiny leather sleeves. Others simply wrapped them in old shirt strips. Frontier ledgers record ammunition sold by the handful, a sign that men bought only what they could hide, knowing that visibility was risk. Trail journals recount riders checking secret stashes before long crossings, ensuring each cartridge was ready when it counted most. These hidden rounds carried reassurance no revolver alone could give. And once the last bullet was counted, cowboys often reached for something smaller, lighter, and almost playful. A secret kept for moments when time itself slowed: miniature playing cards. Not every tool a cowboy carried was for work. Some were for sanity. Miniature playing cards fit neatly in a vest pocket or behind a coat lining, a quiet escape from the endless monotony of the trail. Small enough to vanish in a fist, they offered a moment of distraction, a spark of connection, and sometimes a lifeline to camaraderie when miles stretched on and the herd seemed endless. Standard decks were bulky and vulnerable to dust and sweat, but these tiny sets, printed in New York, St. Louis, and Cincinnati, were built for the road. Trail accounts describe cowboys dealing hands in the dark, shuffling cards on a saddle blanket, or passing time during long night watches. Lawmen, teamsters, and drovers alike carried them, knowing boredom could be as dangerous as any storm or stray steer. Surviving decks in museums show rounded corners, faded inks, and worn cases, proof they traveled miles hidden close to the body. Some even bear tally marks, private records of victories and losses kept out of sight. And when the games ended, cowboys often reached for a heavier, more practical companion, the one that made sure their steel kept moving when the dust tried to stop it. Gun oil tin. Dust was a cowboy's constant enemy, relentless and unforgiving. It crept into every hinge, seam, and moving part of a revolver, turning smooth steel into a gritty trap. One grain in the wrong place could jam a cylinder and leave a man exposed. That's why nearly every rider carried a small tin of gun oil or grease, hidden deep in a pocket or saddle pouch. Some tins came from the store, stamped metal with corks or screw tops. Others were repurposed tobacco containers filled with homemade mixtures of tallow, axle grease, or lamp oil. A quick smear on the hammer screw, a drop on the base pin, kept the action fluid when temperatures plunged or dust storms swept through. Frontier inventories list tins alongside cartridges, and old cleaning kits still show blackened stains from years of rubbing against steel. Cowboys didn't pamper their guns. They kept them alive. And as the revolver gleamed again, another item lingered closer to the heart. Something a man carried not for mechanics, but for memory, faith, and the quiet reassurance that the West demanded. Personal keepsake, photo or letter. A cowboy could ride without food, sleep, or comfort, but he rarely rode without a piece of home tucked close. Deep in a vest pocket, sewn into a lining, or hidden beneath a saddle flap, many carried small reminders of the life they'd left behind. A creased photograph, a lock of hair tied with twine, a worn letter read too many times to count. If you're fascinated by the hidden lives of cowboys and want more stories from the untold frontier, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. There's a world of secrets waiting just beyond the next trail. These keepsakes weren't for display. In a world that rewarded silence and self-reliance, tenderness had to be private. Trail letters and ranch journals mention men checking their mementos before long crossings or night watches, grounding themselves against the endless miles and unpredictable dangers. Archaeologists still uncover faded ribbons, rings wrapped in cloth, and tiny portraits hidden inside cabins and graves. Small fragments of lives lived far from view. Every keepsake was a lifeline, a quiet defiance against the isolation of the frontier. And once a cowboy's heart was steadied by memory, he often reached for another secret, one that protected his earnings from hands that never slept, hidden where no thief would ever think to look. Money hidden in the hatband. A cowboy's pay was earned hard and spent cautiously. But the West had a way of taking what was left in plain sight. Pockets tore, saddlebags vanished, and a careless hand in a saloon could empty a man before he even realized it. That's why so many riders hid their cash in the hatband, folded flat beneath the leather strip, where few ever thought to look. Bills, coins, or wage receipts were slipped behind the lining, pressed flush so the hat kept its shape and rode securely on long rides. Some even tucked coins wrapped in cloth along the crown, balancing the weight so it didn't shift mid-gallop. Trail riders, drovers, and lawmen alike trusted this secret bank, a silent safeguard against thieves, storms, and misfortune. Frontier newspapers occasionally reported men robbed of everything except the clever hat stash, the one place even seasoned hands overlooked. Sweat-darkened bands on surviving Stetsons hint at long-forgotten treasures, proof of caution turned habit. And just when money was secured, a cowboy reached for the last line of defense, a hidden blade or tiny pistol, the tool that could decide life or death in a heartbeat, boot knife or derringer. When everything else failed, this was the last answer. Long before a cowboy reached for the gun on his hip, he trusted the weapon no one else knew he carried, hidden inside a boot top, stitched behind a vest lining, or pressed flat against the body. A small knife or tiny derringer was insurance for moments when distance disappeared and time ran out. Boot knives were thin, practical, and brutally honest. Sharp enough to cut rope, free a trapped leg, or buy a single heartbeat. in close-quarter trouble where a revolver was useless. Derringers served the same purpose. One shot, no flourish, no second chances. Gamblers hid them beneath waistcoats. Barkeepers kept them under aprons. Cowboys carried them because the trail turned strangers into threats without warning. Museum examples tell the truth. Handles worn smooth by sweat, bluing rubbed thin, screws loosened by years of quiet reliance. These weren't weapons of pride. They were carried for the moments no one talked about. Hollywood gave the West loud gunfights and clean endings. The real frontier ended in inches, silence, and the hidden steel a man trusted when there was nothing left to lose. The West wasn't built on guns, whiskey, or legend. It was stitched together with the quiet items cowboys carried close, the tools, memories, and secrets that made survival possible. Every pouch, every blade, every hidden coin tells a story of endurance, cleverness, and the human spirit facing a land that demanded respect.
But
If you've enjoyed uncovering the hidden side of the frontier, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a journey into the little-known truths of history. Share this with someone who loves stories that reveal the real grit behind the legends. The frontier may be in the past, but its secrets are still waiting for the curious.